Welcome again to our chapter 13, where we are looking at marketing management. Marketing management, where marketing management basically involves the management of the marketing function of an organization. From what we have covered in BEC111, I'm sure we all picked it, that a business organization can be described as an institution of the free market system that attempts to satisfy the needs and wants of the community while making a profit. That's how we defined a business organization in BEC111. A business can also be described as a system that converts inputs into outputs, which are basically products and services that can be used for by the community. This is also how we defined business organizations when we started looking at operations management. But now we are looking at marketing management, and it's important to understand that marketing is also one of the functions that are very important for every business. And the marketing function is that aspect of the business that is involved in the marketing process, which is basically the transfer of products or services to the market. And the market in this case is not a place, but we're talking of the people who are willing to use the products, who are also able to pay for the products. The marketing process consists of environmental scanning, and also it consists of the development of the market offering, which is basically the product or the service. So it's important to look at the learning outcomes for the course. What are we supposed to be able to have learned by the end of this particular chapter? So these are the learning outcomes which are projected on this slide, and this is the chapter outline, where we will look at the introduction, then the evolution of the marketing thought. We will also look at the marketing concept, defining marketing, components of the marketing process, market research. We'll also look at consumer behavior, market segmentation, target market selection and positioning, the marketing instruments, product decisions, pricing decisions, distribution decisions, marketing communication decisions. Then we'll also look at customer service. Then we will we have covered what you are supposed to have covered for this particular chapter. Looking at the evolution of the marketing thought, where the marketing thought evolved from, where it came from, and where it is going. It's always important to understand that the marketing thought has evolved over time. If you read your textbook, times are actually given before the World War, before the First World War, what was happening, after the First World War, the Second World War, after the Second World War. I will not be much interested in those. But what I think is very important and is key for purposes of this course is to understand that the evolution of the marketing thought, or the marketing thought, has actually evolved from an operation-oriented management to a sales-oriented management to a marketing-oriented management to a consumer-oriented management to a strategic approach to marketing, and also to relationship marketing. So it's important to also understand that some organizations still practice the operations-oriented approach or oriented management. Others still practice sales-oriented management, while others still practice marketing-oriented management. Others choose the consumer-oriented management. So it's important for us as students and as prospective marketing managers to also understand the evolution of the marketing thought. So starting with the operation-oriented management. Operation-oriented organizations tried to increase the number and variety of products that they produced. So it was mainly focused on the production. So according to this approach, management should ask questions such as, what can we do best? So that we can concentrate all our resources in what we can do best. That way we will be able to produce more and more of the products. If it's in the case of service organizations, management will ask the questions such as, which services are most convenient for us to offer? Which products can we offer without problems so that we can actually make profits or make money? Or where do our talents lie so that we will be able to offer services or will be able to offer products? Organizations that engaged in this approach, operation-oriented management, were organized around product lines so that they will focus more on their production, focus more on the products that they offer to the market, and produce more. So in this case, obviously, they would focus more on the transformation processes. How best can we produce products? How best can we offer services? So if you read, you realize that this particular approach, it focused on the needs of the market. Okay, or else, let me say, instead of focusing on the needs of the market, management focused on their capabilities or on the capabilities of the organization. What is it that the organization can do? Yet, they were actually supposed to be focusing on the needs of the market. I'm sure you understood in chapter 1 when we said, if you are offering a product that doesn't satisfy any needs of the market, then you can as well fail as an organization. So with the operation-oriented management, it ignored the needs of the market, the needs of the people. So looking at sales-oriented management, if we are to look at sales-oriented management, this was the phase which was characterized by misleading adverts, characterized by unethical selling behavior, because people will be paid on commission or were being paid on commission. So they would trick anyone so that they will buy. But you must also know that you cannot cheat people every time. Wise people, you can only cheat them once. Once they realize, they will never buy from you. So with this, with the sales-oriented approach, they actually say, from the production-oriented approach, the situation gradually changed and top management succeeded in solving most of the pressing operations problems. The new machinery worked steadily and stocks began to accumulate, which became a problem. So the sales-oriented approach emanated from the problem of warehousing, space, and so forth. There was shortage of space to keep products that were produced. So during the period between 1930 and 1950, management became more sales-oriented in an attempt to sell those mass-produced products. As I said earlier, misleading adverts and unethical sales methods were employed. The objective was to sell products at any cost, whether people are cheated or not, whether people are misled or not. For as long as we get rid of the products, that was fine. And obviously, this was not going to last long. This was not good for organizations. This was not sustainable. Although there are companies or organizations that still practice the sales-oriented management. So this led to the evolution of the marketing-oriented management. And with the market-oriented management, this means not only sales message or the price matter, but the quality of the product, the packaging, the choice of distribution channels, and the methods of informing potential customers about the market offering or about the product, they also matter. So the issue of quality of the products, the issue of quality of the service being offered, it also had an effect in the marketing-oriented management. But as increasingly competitive consumer products became available and the financial position of consumers improved, consumer demands also started changing. Management began to understand the importance of the consumer, or the importance of the consumer demand in the marketing component. It became clear that consumer needs and preferences needed to be considered when product-related decisions were made. So, in the consumer-oriented management, instead of focusing mainly on what we are able to produce, instead of focusing only on the quality of the product that we will offer to the market, or instead of trying to get rid of the products, it was important, or it became important, to understand the needs of the consumer. And in operations management, I remember I said everything that an organization plans to offer to the market, before they produce a product or before they come up with a service that they can offer to the market, they must have a consumer in mind. The final use of the product. Why would they want to use that product? What needs does that particular product satisfy? So that was it about the consumer-oriented management. Then from the consumer-oriented management, we must also know that continual changes in the marketing environment have been occurring, and the need to ensure survival and growth of organization meant that management had to concentrate on scanning the environment and on long-term issues. This is basically understanding now the internal environment of the organization, the external environment of the organization, without neglecting consumer needs. But for survival and for long-term sustainability of the organization, it was important for organizations to develop a strategic approach to marketing. So that's what led to the strategic approach to marketing. And now there is also what is known as relationship marketing, whereby for organizations to survive, for businesses to survive, managers now understand that they have to build close and long-lasting relationships with their clients, or with their customers, or with the consumers. There is need for long-term relationships. With the relationship marketing, that's when you realize that once there is any development in any organization, they may actually communicate directly with those that buy from them, with those that use their products. So it is important for you to actually go back to your textbook, read especially from page 405, to read and understand the evolution of the marketing thought. How do these differ? How does operations-oriented management differ from the rest? How do these differ? You need to be in a position to compare them and also see why sales-oriented management cannot work nowadays. It is very, very important. We move on to the marketing concept. Marketing concept is basically the ethical code to which marketing task is performed. And it is the marketing concept that directs all marketing decisions about products, distribution methods, marketing communication, as well as price determination. There are four principles of the marketing concept. Which we ought to understand. And these principles are the ones that we provided on the slide. The principle of profitability. We cannot say you are marketing products if that will lead to an organization making losses. So marketing should lead to profitability of the organization. The same also with consumer orientation. Marketing should focus on consumers' needs, expectations, or consumers' needs and wants. Then there is also the principle of social responsibility. As we covered in chapter 5, corporate social responsibility, in terms of marketing, organizations should also show social responsibility. Remember the market drivers. for corporate social responsibility, where we said some actually engage in CSR so that they can increase revenue and also reduce costs. So social responsibility is also part of the marketing concept. Then organizational integration, to say the entire organization should be working together in ensuring that they satisfy the needs of the consumers. So it's not a matter of the marketing function only, but the entire organization. Merits of the marketing concept. Why are these principles important for any organization? Obviously, if you satisfy profitability, that will also help an organization to be sustainable in the long term. Consumer orientation will also yield to sustainability in the long term. It will also yield to profitability of an organization. The same applies to social responsibility. Once an organization is socially responsible, it can actually be in a position to increase revenue and to reduce costs. And it's important for an organization, or for all parts of the organization, to work together in harmony for the attainment of the organizational goals. So this particular figure, which is also in your textbook as figure 13.1, shows those principles of the marketing concept. We also ought to define marketing. We defined the marketing function at the beginning when I provided an introduction. But now defining marketing. Marketing consists of management tasks and decisions directed at successfully meeting opportunities and threats in a dynamic environment by effectively developing and transferring a need-satisfying market offering to consumers in such a way that the objectives of the business, the consumer, and society will be achieved. Remember, in chapter 4, we looked at opportunities and threats. And opportunities, we said, these are favorable conditions in the external environment. These are threats, these are unfavorable conditions in the external environment. In terms of market offering, we're speaking of a product or a service. This is basically the components of the marketing process. You can also look at this figure in your textbook. It's figure 13.2. You can look at it, but basically what it is showing is the process, the marketing process. We will also look at market research. Market research is basically important, or is very important, since we need information to make decisions. So management need information to make decisions. So we are saying information is needed in order to manage a business effectively. And such information needs to increase understanding of relevant market segments. It also ought to be pertinent to planning and controlling, and should help in decision making. So it's not information just to have information for the mere fact that we need information. It should be information that yields for the betterment of the organization. The organization must benefit from such information. Marketing research methodology, marketing research can either be done to solve problems or to identify problems. So it can be for problem identification, or it can actually be for problem solving. So research can be done for those two reasons, either problem solving or problem identification. In terms of market forecasting, we can forecast in terms of sales. We can also forecast the profit contribution. Like we are foreseeing what may happen in the future or in the near future. So we can actually forecast the sales to say, no, sales can be increased by this particular percentage. Profits can be increased by this particular percentage because of these particular factors. There are also, the marketing research process is also given in your textbook. When you find time, you ought to read it to understand all the steps of the marketing process, so that it will not be a problem when we move even to marketing research at second year level. That's where we look at identifying the problem, issues to do with the methodology, how the research can be done. Is it qualitative? Is it quantitative? Those particular steps. They are steps for the marketing research process, which we ought to understand even at this stage. So your textbook provides a number of those steps which you ought to understand, so that you will not have a problem when it comes to explaining the process of marketing research. How do managers gain that information? Okay, so we move on to consumer behavior. Consumer behavior, these are behavior patterns of decision-making units, which can be individuals or groups, directly involved in the purchase and use of products. So we're looking at purchasing, use, and also disposal of products, including the decision-making processes preceding and determining these behavior patterns. So consumer behavior consists of overt acts. Your textbook says overt acts. These are acts that can be observed by people. What people can actually observe one doing. Then there are also covert processes. These are processes which consumers undergo, but we will never see them. And your textbook explains covert processes as processes which cannot be seen. For example, a consumer cannot be seen considering his or her financial position before they buy a product. So that is a covert process. When someone considers whether they afford a product or they do not afford it. Overt acts, we can observe someone picking up a product from the shelf, looking at the product, we can observe them doing that and proceeding to the till to pay for the product. Those are overt acts. We can also observe a person picking up a product from the shelf, looking at the product, frown at a product and put it back onto the shelf. So that is also an overt act. But there are certain things that people go through, certain processes that people consider that we will never be able to observe. For example, when they weigh the advantages or disadvantages of a product, or when they weigh even their own financial position. So those become covert processes which we cannot see. Determinants of consumer behavior, there are two main groups of factors which determine consumer behavior, which are basically individual factors and group factors. Individual decision making is straightforward. But now when it comes to the group context, it becomes more complex. For example, in terms of decision making for an individual person, it's straightforward. If a person has a negative attitude towards a product, they may not buy it. If a person does not see any need to buy a product, they may not buy it. But when it comes to a group situation, for example, in a family, a father may not see the need for a product, but for as long as a child sees the need for that product, the father may be compelled to buy it. The father may or the mother may not see the need for a product, but for as long as the father sees the need, the mother may be compelled to use that particular product. So decision making in group setting, it can actually be complicated as opposed to in an individual setting. So there are a number of factors that determine consumer behavior, and these can be classified into group factors and into individual factors. In your textbook, if you look at page 423, from page 423, you will actually see that there are a number of factors that influence consumer behavior. So if we start with individual factors, we see issue of motivation, having the need to satisfy. So if you have a need to satisfy, you are most likely to buy a product, you are most likely to use it. If you do not have a need to satisfy, you are most likely not to buy the product. You are also most likely not to use the product. Then there is also the issue of attitude. Attitude. So if you have a positive attitude towards a product, you are most likely to buy it. But if you have a negative attitude, you are most likely not to buy it. Then there is also consumer perceptions. Your perception towards a product. Consumers' perceptions determine what they pay attention to and what excites their interest. And they say consumers usually hear what they want to hear. People usually hear what they want to hear. So people's perceptions also affect what they buy, what they use. Then there's also learning ability. For someone to understand the advantages or the disadvantages, the side effects of a certain product, if people are able to learn about a product, they will be able to decide on whether they will use a product or they will not use a product. There are certain people who may not use a product simply because they are not able to understand the benefits of that particular product. Then there is also personality or personality traits. I'm sure you know people can be described by means of certain traits. Others can be described as playful, others as ambitious, others as childish. So people use products that are in line with their personality. There is also the issue of lifestyle, which goes hand in hand with personality, which we can also not ignore. So those are factors or individual factors that influence consumer behavior. They influence on whether a person will buy a product, whether they will use a product, or even dispose or stop using a product. Then in terms of group factors, we have the family, we also have reference groups, we also have opinion leaders and cultural groups. Culture is very, very key, is very, very important. There are certain people who do not eat certain products or who do not use certain products simply because of their culture or their religion. Some sectors of the Christian faith do not eat pork products because of their religion. There is certain dressing which may not be tolerated in certain cultural groups. So that will also affect on whether a person will use certain fashion products or not. Opinion leaders have an important function in the marketing communication process as they act as go-between in what is known as the two-step flow of communication. So usually opinion leaders, these are people that when marketers want to introduce a product, they influence opinion leaders first. Once opinion leaders accept a product, the rest of the population are most likely to accept it. And here, they normally use celebrities. Once their product has been accepted by celebrities, they know everyone who follows that particular person. They are most likely to use that product. I know you guys have examples of products that you use, not because you know their benefits, not because of any other reason, but simply because a person that you respect, a person that you follow, a person that you hold in high esteem uses that particular product. So you would also want to use it. Then reference groups, because of the need of affiliation, people normally want to belong in a certain group. And there are certain products that people will end up using simply because they want to be associated with a certain group of people. For instance, if you are friends, there are certain products that you would use so that you would just be acceptable in that particular group. So friends, people that we associate with, sometimes they actually have an influence on the products or services that we will end up using or that we will end up not using. The family, that's a complicated situation in most cases because people play different roles at different times in the family. In some cases, someone may actually have the need, someone may have to decide what should be bought, and then the other one will have to pay for it. So we cannot ignore the roles of families, of family members at different times. This product goes on to show us the decision-making process, but I think it is explained, it will be explained as we proceed, which basically starts with awareness of a need or a problem. Then the person gathers information, we evaluate the options that are available, then you take the action, which in this case will be to buy the product. Then you do what is known as post-purchase evaluation. It is at this post-purchase evaluation where a person will decide on whether they will use the product again or they will stop using the product. In terms of consumer decision making, there are factors that influence any organizational buying decision. They include the environment, the organization itself, the buying group, the people who are buying, and also the individual buyers. The decision-making process moves through 5 phases that we looked at when we looked at figure 13.4, which is also in your textbook. Phase 1 is basically awareness of an unsatisfied need or problem. Then phase 2 is involves gathering information on how best to solve the problem. Phase 3 will be the evaluation of possible solutions. Which other products can you use? Then phase 4, you decide on the course of action. What are you buying? And you buy it. You buy it, you use it, and after using it, you see whether it worked well or you must stop using it. Okay, so now we'll also look at market segmentation. It's important to understand that the total market can be subdivided into the consumer market, where you sell directly to, or where you sell to the final users of the product. It can also be categorized into industrial market, where you sell to those who reuse the product, add value to it, and then sell a product that they will have developed. Resale market, we're talking of wholesalers, retailers, and other agencies. Then the government can also be the market. Then steps to follow when segmenting a market. I think it's important to also understand what is market segmentation. Market segmentation is a process in which the total heterogeneous market is divided into smaller, more homogeneous groups with relatively uniform needs or characteristics. So attempts are made to satisfy the needs of different homogeneous groups by developing different market offerings. So market segmentation, that's a process in which a total heterogeneous market is divided into smaller, more homogeneous groups with relatively uniform characteristics or uniform needs. So the steps to follow when segmenting the market or when subdividing the market. You need to be able to identify the needs. Then you group the needs into homogeneous subgroups. Select target markets and then also position the product within market segment. So if you are to position the product after selecting target market, the one that you are going to target after subdividing the market, you must also position a product within a market segment. Say, okay, this is the particular segment that I'm going to target, and I will be offering product A or product B to this particular segment. Then the requirements for meaningful market segmentation, which means it can also be done in an unmeaningful way, in a way that doesn't make any sense. But we must do it in a meaningful way. The segment must be identifiable and measurable. You must be able to identify a particular segment and also to measure it, to determine on whether it is big enough. And also in terms of identifying it, you need to be able to actually say which segment that is in terms of targeting it, or when you want to position your product. The segment must be big enough and must be sustainable. The segment must also be reachable and must be responsive. Responsive in terms of price changes, those issues of supply and demand, and also to other things that may happen in the market. For instance, if you put effort in that particular segment, it should respond. It should be responsive. And it is only once requirements have been met by a segment that the segment can then be selected as a target market. It ought to be big enough, it ought to be identifiable, it ought to be measurable, reachable, and also responsive. Criteria for market segmentation. Segmentation can be geographic. It can also be demographic, focusing on demographic factors where you subdivide the market in terms of demographic factors. It can also be done in terms of psychographic factors such as lifestyle, personality, class, and so forth. It can also be behavioral, where you look at issues such as purchase occasion, the benefits that people are seeking, the status of the users, and also loyalty status. So as we said earlier, once segmentation has taken place, the marketer must select the segment with the most promising target market. Abilities and expertise of the business have to be linked to the characteristics of the consumers in each segment, and the competitive situation in each market or in each segment that is chosen must be carefully considered. So now, when you are to target a specific segment, we are saying you ought to consider the competitive situation in each segment of the market, as those may also have an effect. Then we are moving on to marketing instruments. Marketing instruments. And these, for this, I think it's very important that you also read on your page, on page 434 of the prescribed textbook. There you will learn that marketing management constantly modifies decisions about the 4 marketing mix instruments. And the 4 marketing mix instruments are basically the product, distribution, marketing communication, and pricing. As circumstances change and consumers' acceptance of the product gradually increases. For example, consumers first have to be educated to accept an innovation that is an original new product. At the same time, an existing product that is in a later phase of its life cycle should be actively promoted to prevent consumers from possibly buying a competing product. So here we're speaking of issues of product, place, then we're also speaking of pricing, and the other P is usually the people. So some usually speak of the marketing mix as the 4 Ps. So we look at the product decisions, and here you ought to be in a position to know what is a product. What does a consumer product consist of? So a product is a composition of tangible and intangible need-satisfying utilities that are offered to consumers, so consumers can take note of them, procure them, and use them. So it's important to also know the components of a consumer product. There is what is known as the core product that can be described in terms of the basic need met and the technical and physical qualities. For example, in terms of a stainless steel pen, that is a stainless steel casing with a fountain point tip, meets the need to communicate. Then there is also a formal product, which in addition to the core product may also include a specific features such as style, quality, brand, and packaging. Then there is the need satisfying product, comprising further need satisfying utilities such as guarantees, repair services, and so forth. Then there is also what is known as the product image, which gives the product symbolic value by means of the type or marketing message, pricing, choice, distribution outlet, and so forth. Then the total product comprises of all the above mentioned components. All the other components, they add up to the total product. Classification of consumer products. Consumer products are intended for immediate use by households or by consumers, the final users of the product. There's need to distinguish between durable and non-durable products. Durable products are those that last longer. Non-durable products, they do not last long. Consumer products can be classified according to consumer buying habits. How consumers buy. So on page 436 of your textbook, you will also realize that we have what are known as convenience products, shopping products, and specialty products. In terms of convenience products, these are products which should be within easy reach of the consumer. It should be easier for them to reach them. Examples are given: milk, sweets, magazines, etc. Then shopping products are products for which the consumer wants to compare suitability, quality, price, style before they can buy. Then specialty products are products with unique characteristics for which consumers will make a special purchasing effort. And examples are also given, such as expensive cameras, luxury items, such as cars, and so forth. There are lots of those examples in the textbook. We are also moving on to brand decisions. Brand decisions. What is a brand, or the meaning of brands? A brand is a mark that is unique to the product, items or ranges produced and marketed by a particular business, and that is chosen to distinguish them from similar competing products. Brand name is just a word. It can be a letter or a group of words that are used for a product or for a service. Brands offer many advantages to both the consumers and the marketers. So there are many advantages of brands to the consumer and to the marketers. So I think it is important to look at why branding is important for consumers. Assuming you want to buy a product without a name, but you just know that the product looks like this, I think it will be very difficult to actually buy it from a shop where you try to describe it, but still those assistants in shops may not understand it. So well-known brands offer the following advantages to consumers. One, they facilitate the identification of products when the consumer is purchasing. They also assure consumers of a quality standard that they can count on. Like, you know that this particular product with this particular name works in this particular way. And people can also assure you other people can also give in their own recommendations because they had used the product and they are able to identify it. You are also able to identify it. They also offer a certain degree of protection to consumers because branded products can be identified with a specific producer who produced it. If there is if a product is branded, you can be able to trace the producer of that product, and if there are any problems, you can attach them to the producer. They also facilitate decision making because consumers can easily recognize the brands that they usually buy. So it will not take a lot of time for you to identify which particular product you want to buy. They also serve as a warning against products that do not meet requirements set by the consumers. So these are some of the advantages of using brands to consumers. However, brands also have some advantages to the marketers. One of those advantages is that they make price comparison with competing products more difficult to a certain extent protect the retailer against self-destructive price wars. If the consumer wants only to buy a certain brand, for example, he will not easily buy a cheaper one. So they are of advantage also to marketers. They are also the foundation stone of the marketing communication strategy, where the message indicates precisely which product should be bought by the customer. Brands also facilitate the expansion of existing product ranges. Consumers tend to accept new additions on existing ranges. But if you read on page 440, you find many of these advantages to the marketers. Brand loyalty. Brand loyalty occurs when consumers show loyalty to a certain brand, that they only want that particular brand. They want that particular brand. It is usually as a result of good product quality, proven usefulness, and repeated marketing communication, that a person will then say, I will only buy this particular brand. So consumers move through 3 phases of loyalty. The first one being brand recognition, where consumers recognize the brand and know what it stands for. They just know, they are able to recognize it. So they can buy it simply because they are able to recognize it and they know what it stands for. Then the second phase is brand preference. In terms of brand preference, consumers prefer the brand to other competing brands. So given the option to choose, they would buy the one that they prefer. Then there is another phase which is known as brand insistence. When they insist on a particular brand. So consumers insist on the specific brand and refuse to accept any substitute. They refuse to accept any substitute. There are different types of brands. Is given manufacturer brands, dealer brands, generic brands, individual brands, and there is also family brands. Then there is also what is known as packaging. Packaging, basically, this is a group of activities concerned with the design, manufacturing, and filling of a container or wrapper with a product so it can be protected, stored, transported, identified, and marketed. So packaging also plays a key role in terms of ensuring that the product can be identified, and it also makes it easier for marketers to communicate their message about the product to the consumers. There are different kinds of packaging that can be identified. We have special packaging, reusable packaging, and family packaging. These are different. You will also need to read them or to read about them. They are clearly explained on page 442 of your prescribed textbook, and there is nothing that can actually be difficult there. In terms of family packaging, all the products in the range are pegged more or less identically more or less the same. Then in terms of specialty packaging, this gives an image of exclusivity to the product, normally used for perfumes, jewelry, and so forth. Then there is reusable packaging. This creates an impression that the consumer receives a free container if he or she buys the product. So you need to read more about those. Then there is also differentiation. Differentiation is important because as a marketer, you ought to be in a position to differentiate your products from those of competitors. Packaging plays a role, pricing plays a role, then there are many other factors that can be used to differentiate products. So business distinguishes its products physically or psychologically from essentially identical competing products so that the product is regarded as different by consumers in a specific target marketing. So in a specific target market, kinds of differentiation that can be pursued or that can be used by marketers, these include differentiation by packaging and also differentiation by the brand. The brand is normally printed on packaging. So that's why we are saying differentiation by means of packaging and brand. Differentiation can also be done by advertising appeals. It can also be done in terms of pricing or in terms of distribution outlet. There is also need for us to speak a bit about product or obsolescence. That some products can become obsolete. They can lose value. So this refers to a situation where a product may intentionally be made technically and or psychologically obsolete in order to compel consumers to make repeat purchases. For example, in the cellular industry, cell phone industry, where a model or a certain cell phone, we can use Samsung, that it can actually offer you a certain model of their cell phone. Then within a period of time, they release another one, which will compel other consumers to buy the latest one. Then within a year, they release another better model also. And that will compel other people to buy that latest one. So they normally do it so that people will continue to buy from them. And that way they continue to gain repeated purchases, which will translate to increase in revenues, increase in profits, and so forth. Then there is also multi-product decisions. Marketers must also make decisions about the composition of the product offering. The product offering usually consists of a product range or a diversified variety of product items and ranges. Multi-product items in total product offering reduce the risk of failure and also the risk of financial loss. New product decisions are the first phase is actual development of product ideas. What should we offer to the market? How should we offer it to the market? Then those ideas will need to be screened. So the phase 2 involves screening of product ideas according to financial criteria. Then phase 3 involves elimination of product ideas that do not appear to be viable. If it is not profitable, why keep it? Do away with it. Then phase 4 is physical product development by the production division, during which a prototype is manufactured. Then phase 5 is the development of a marketing strategy. That marketing strategy needs to be tested. So test marketing in a specific small segment of the market. Then phase 7 will be the introduction of the product to the market. We are also supposed to look, for purposes of this course, at the nature of the product's life cycle. So you are saying, basically the product life cycle illustrates the curve of a product sales or profits over a period of time. So you're saying you don't just introduce a product today and you have high sales. And it doesn't mean that if you have high sales today, you will always have high sales. There are lots of things that happen in the market and we cannot ignore those. So we have the four phases that can be identified in a product life cycle, which we ought to understand at this stage. So this phase, indicates time, this axis, and this axis indicates both sales or profits. So the profit curve is the one that is the dotted line. The sales curve is the one that is in bold. So all the other steps, they may have taken place before the product could be offered to the market. So we can start looking at it here when the product is introduced to the market. You will see that the sales, they may be very low, but they will be gradually increasing at the introduction phase. When sales start, that's not when the company starts also to enjoy the profits. Profits, they will start a little bit later, but you also see that they will also be gradually increasing. So when the product is offered to the market, it takes time for people to know it, to recognize it, and to understand its benefits. So their level of acceptance will determine the level at which they will also be buying the product. So once people start to accept the product, to know the product, they will also start to buy it. So when it's introduced to the market, both the profits and sales, they may be low, but they may actually be increasing. Then at the growth stage, or at the growth phase, at this phase, people will have known the product. They will now have understood how the product works. So they may also start to buy the product and use the product. So in terms of costs, in the introduction phase and in the growth phase, there is need for a lot of advertising and promotion so that people can buy and know the product. But sales growth and profit growth cannot grow until forever. It will come a point where saturation will be reached. And these will need to start either growing at the same level, or they may actually need to start going down, especially when they've reached everyone in the market, and also when the product starts to mature. So in the maturity stage, the sales will also start to drop, but the level of dropping, they will not be dropping rapidly. No, but the drop can actually be noticed. Then after the maturity stage, there is what is known as the declining stage, where sales and profits will start to decline. And there is need actually at this stage, either at maturity stage, to rejuvenate the product so that these curves can start to go up again. But for purposes of this course, we will look at the introductory phase, growth phase, maturity phase, and the decline phase. So marketing strategy during the product life cycle, hopefully you will remember this particular life cycle as we move forward. Each phase of the product life cycle has specific implications for the product and the marketing of the product. Our integrated marketing strategy needs to be adapted to adjust the changing conditions at each phase. It is also important to remember that not all products have identical life cycles. So it doesn't mean all products have the same life cycles. They may differ. We also need to look at pricing decisions. What is price? I don't think I need to be defining that. But basically, this is the exchange value of a product or a service, and it is closely linked to the benefit and value of the product. Price can also be defined as the value of a product or service which is determined by its benefit to the consumer and the sacrifice required in terms of money and effort to obtain the product. So price decisions, the price determination process, we're looking at 4 steps where you determine the cost price, then you determine the market price, you determine the target price, and finally you determine the final price. So how final prices are determined? Okay, normally I'm sure it's known that the cost price is, if you want to make profits, the final price should be higher than the cost price, so that you make the profit. Adaptations of the final product, these are different. We have what are known as skimming pricing strategies, market penetration pricing, market price level, leader prices, odd prices, bait prices. So the pricing strategies are very different. And we need to be in a position to explain how these differ. How these differ. How do this particular pricing strategy differ from the other? It is very, very important for us to know. So I'm sure we all know what are skimming pricing. If you move to page 451 of the prescribed textbook, you will see how these differ. So in terms of skimming, they say if the product is an innovation and therefore a unique product, the final price may have a much higher profit margin. Some consumers are prepared to pay a high price because such new innovations usually have a prestige value. So in fact, if the price is set too low, consumers may possibly doubt the new product's usefulness. So in terms of skimming pricing, when the product is introduced to the market, it's introduced to the market at a higher price, so that people will assume or will have that perception that it is of high quality, it is a new innovation, and they will buy it, they will accept it. So that will be skimming pricing. So as competition increases, they may actually start to reduce the price, but people will already have accepted the product because of the pricing strategy that we have been used. Then we also have what is known as market penetration pricing, where when you want to offer a product to the market, you introduce it at a lower price so that people will be able to afford it. Once the product has been used and people have seen that it has many benefits and it is of good quality, you can then start to increase the price, so that those people who have the learning ability, those people who have learned the benefits of that product, they can continue to buy it, even if the prices increase. Then we also have market price level. This strategy is followed if there is keen competition in numerous similar products. So you just adopt the market price, what others are selling at. So you ought to ensure that your cost is lower than the market price. Then there are also what are known as leader prices. Leader pricing concerns special offers. These so-called specials are used by retailers to lure consumers to their shops. Purchasers purchase a low-priced specials as well as many other products with a higher profit margin. So you think that I'm going to buy from this shop because the prices are low, but they will be low for certain products, not for all products. So when you buy those products on special, they know that you will also buy other products that are not on special, and the organization will benefit. You will go thinking that you have benefited, but it is the organization that will have benefited. Then we also have what are known as odd prices. which most people know about. They indicate, odd prices indicate that the final prices of a product have odd numbers. So even numbers, for example, a product to say it's priced at 800 rand, or at 60 rand, or at 200 rand, they are avoided. And products are rather marked at, let's say, a product for 600 rand, they will say it's costing 599 rand. And someone will actually think that it is cheaper than 600 rand. Or it can even be 599 rand 99 cents. So someone will buy it simply because they think that it is cheaper than 600 rand. We have seen people buying products for 9 rand 99 and avoiding products for 10 rand. And yet at the till they will not get that 1 cent change. So those are odd pricing strategies. Then we also have bait prices. Bait prices, they are described as unethical. So they say bait prices are unethical and therefore they are avoided by honest retailers. A bait price item has a particularly low price and is widely advertised. When coming to buy it, purchasers are encouraged to buy a far more expensive item. The retailer does not really intend to sell the bait price item most of the time. It is not even in stock, or only one item is available at the low price. So they just use it to attract people so that you come and buy it. And the moment you come, you may not find the product that is cheaper and you'll be encouraged to buy a more expensive product. Because of your ego, you will not just want to go empty-handed. You will end up just buying a product to save your status. So honest retailers, they avoid it, but some retailers, they use it. We move on to distribution decisions. Description of distribution. Basically, distribution decisions involve activities that have to be carried out to direct the flow of products and services from the business to the consumer in such a way as to satisfy the primary objective of the business and to meet the needs of the consumer. So in as much as we want to meet the need of the consumer, we must, as a business, remain profitable and our image must remain untainted. It entails decision making about the type of distribution channel to be utilized and the degree of market coverage required. So there are various distribution channels. We have the direct one, where from manufacturer we just go straight to reach the final user of the product. In some cases, we will need to, from a manufacturer, we allow retailers to buy, then they sell to consumers. Or it's manufacturer, then we sell to wholesalers, and wholesalers sell directly to consumers. In some cases, we may actually, as a manufacturer, sell to wholesalers who will then sell to retailers, and retailers will sell to the consumers. In other cases, we may have, as manufacturers, we sell to a certain wholesaler who will sell to another wholesaler, who will sell to a retailer, and the retailer will sell to the consumer. So there are a number of distribution channels that can be followed by organizations. In terms of channel leadership, when we speak of channel leadership, typically this is a business that controls or dominates the channel. They are known as channel captains. And in most cases, channel captains are either manufacturers or they can also be retailers. Market coverage, we look at the number of intermediaries in the channel. So there may be intensive market coverage where there are a lot of intermediaries, or exclusive market coverage with few intermediaries, or we can actually have selective market coverage where we choose whether to skip other intermediaries and include others. There is also physical distribution of the products or services And these include activities that take place to ensure the product is available to the final consumer. There are three main components of physical distribution. One being selecting of warehouses, the second one being the selection of the most suitable mode of transport, and selection of optimal inventory holding levels. Wherever we have to keep stock, we must also think of how much stock we must keep. I'm using the word stock in place of inventory because those terms can be used interchangeably. The most effective performance of physical distribution activities ensures timers and reliable delivery of orders, adequate inventory, and also careful handling of inventory to eliminate damages. When we look at purchasing and supply management, the issue of inventory management, we will revisit it, and we will also discuss advantages and disadvantages of holding stock in an organization. We will also discuss the optimum level of stock in an organization. Then we must also look at marketing communication decisions. Marketing communication decisions. These can be regarded as the process of informing, persuading, and reminding the consumer. Marketing communication comprises 6 elements that can be used in a specific combination to communicate with consumers. And these elements are the ones that we provided on the slide as advertising, personal selling, direct marketing, sales promotion, publicity, and public relations. We will look at each of those. So in terms of advertising, this is controlled and paid for. Non-personal marketing communication related to a needs-satisfying product and directed by a marketer at a specific target audience. Adverts can be run on televisions, big screens, movie theaters. They can also be run on radios, in magazines, in newspapers, and in many other channels which may be available. There is also what is known as personal selling. With personal selling, verbal presentation of a product, service, or idea to one or more potential buyers is done in order to conclude a transaction. Sales representatives can also be used to inform buyers about products and to persuade buyers through face-to-face communication to buy the products. Then we also have what is known as direct marketing. Direct marketing uses advertising media to communicate information of a product or service to consumers or to customers, who can then respond by purchasing the product or service via email, telephone, or even the internet. Focus of direct marketing is to obtain an immediate response. Sales promotion, marketing communication methods. This sales promotion involves marketing communication methods that are not normally classified as advertising or personal selling or direct marketing or publicity, but that complement the other elements in trying to influence consumer behavior. They are often short-term in nature, such as to introduce a new product to the market. So a product can be sold, some free products may be given so that people may know about them. People can actually test them, use them for free so that they may know about those products. Then in terms of publicity, this is non-personal stimulation of the demand for a product or service of a business by making its actual current news value available to the mass media to obtain a favorable and free media review of the business and its products. Then there is also public relations, which entails decision making to help organizations' ability to listen to appreciate, and to respond appropriately to those persons or groups whose mutually beneficial relationships the organization needs to foster as it strives to achieve its mission and vision. These are elements of public relations. Obviously, it ought to be a planned activity, sustained activity, deliberate activity, and there is need for communication process. It deals with publics, both internal and external. The media that can be used, it can be the internet, special events. You can use sight and sound, the printed media, or even the spoken word. So we move on to customer service. Customer service can be described as the value added to products and services in the eyes of the consumer. The value added to products and services in the eyes of the consumer. Employees form an integral part of the total customer experience, which can directly affect the success of the business. Customer types. We have external customers. External customers are those people who purchase the products. And 5 basic needs of external customers are basically the service, the price, which is supposed to be lower, quality supposed to be higher, action, and appreciation. Then there are also internal customers, are those people in the company with whom marketers work on a regular basis. Benefits of good internal service. Obviously, it leads to better teamwork and cooperation. It's a greater motivator, positive impact on employee and company growth, and it also provides a sense of belonging, satisfaction, and fulfillment to employees. The importance of excellent customer service. These we can discuss, but they are straightforward. That excellent customer service is important for any organization. And a number of potential rewards of excellent customer services are actually available. So delivering good service is fundamental to the success of the organization. And service is the essential element of the total product offering and customer experience. Remember, in operations management, when we looked at the client's needs or customer's needs, there is also a greater level of service. A greater level of service. The place of customer service in the marketing strategy. Customer service must be embedded in all 4 aspects of the marketing strategy. And the main focus point of marketing action is to establish and maintain the relationships. In relationship marketing, customer relationship management, every customer is seen as a segment of one. You must focus on each and every customer. To provide exceptional service, a company must do the following. 1, make a great first impression. They usually say first impressions last. Project a positive attitude towards your customers, even towards the organization itself. Also communicate effectively. Know what you want to talk about. Communicate it effectively. Build and maintain relationships. Very, very important. Customer service is also important. In terms of customer service, it is also important to manage the expectations of customers. Because for customers to be satisfied, we must have exceeded their expectations. So expectations are personal, or are a personal vision of the outcome of an experience, which may be positive or negative. So if you do not exceed people's expectations or clients' expectations, obviously their satisfaction will be very low. But if you exceed it, it will be high or positive. 2 basic levels of expectations. Okay, expectation can be primary, they can also be secondary, and understanding customer expectations and perceptions are crucial to the survival of the business. You must know what is it that customers expect from us as an organization. That way we may be able to actually satisfy them. We will be able to satisfy them. Managing customer expectations, the primary dimensions to customer perception are issues of reliability. If we are reliable and we prove that we are reliable, our customers will be satisfied. Responsiveness, if we are able to respond to their needs, assurance, empathy, to show empathy and also to be tangible, we can actually be able to manage their expectations. So basically, I'm sure you understood the elements of the marketing process. Market-driven organization is consumer-oriented, not production-oriented. That also marketing is a key function of any organization, because you can produce your products, stay with them in the organization, you will not make profits. But if you are able to produce your products and take them to the market, we can then start to speak of profits and growth. Product decisions also consist of pricing, distribution, communication, and promotion. So I'm expecting a lot of questions on our Blackboard discussions. Please ask questions so that we can continue to interact. Thank you so much. We will cover other chapters also, and they will be posted on Blackboard so that we can continue interacting, and you may also continue to interact with your learning material. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.